Welcome. Our opening music is Dialogue from Rahim Al-Hajj's trio's album One Sky. So welcome to Iraq in 7 Minutes, your home for quick hit analysis from Enabling Peace in Iraq Center. Every Friday, we look at some of the most important developments and trends in Iraq. I'm Eric Essefson, EPIC's Executive Director, and joining me from across 7 time zones is Omar Al-Nadawi, editor of our weekly Iraq report, also known as ISHM. Greetings, Omar. How are you doing?
I am good, Eric. How are you?
Very good, very good. So, you and I get together all the time through meetings, and we're always talking Iraq, and we're always excited. We're always following developments. And finally, we're capturing this now as a regular show. So every week, Iraq in 7 minutes, and we'll be able to take a deep dive on one of the important stories from one of your latest Iraq reports. Among important developments captured in your recent reports, on July 15th, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres announced that Omani diplomat Mohammed al-Hassan has been selected to be his new special representative for Iraq. And the last one, as UNAMI's mission is scheduled to end on December 31st, 2025. Also on July 16th, after a 16-year hiatus, a trade delegation from Iraq arrived in Geneva to resume talks on Iraq joining the World Trade Organization. And of great interest to you and me and all Iraq researchers out there, Iraq is preparing for its first national census since 1997. So, looking at this most recent issue that you've published, Omar, let's take a look at an important security development. So I read that on July 17th, 2 explosive drones targeted the al-Asad airbase in Iraq's Anbar province, which of course houses U.S. military personnel. According to a senior member of the militia Asaib Ahl or Asaib al-Haq, the attack signals an end to a 4-month-long self-imposed ceasefire by Asaib al-Haq and also other Iran-backed militias in Iraq. So what can you tell us about this development and, how it connects to the broader security trends within Iraq?
Yeah, there's actually more than a few layers here. As perhaps you know, and a lot of our readers know, there has been a lot of violence between U.S. forces and Iran-backed militias in Iraq that escalated in the aftermath of the October 7 events in Gaza and Israel. And with the war escalating in Gaza, the militias have been attacking U.S. forces in Iraq and U.S. forces in Syria as retaliation for U.S. support for Israel. And the U.S. was not, sitting by idly in response to those attacks. There have been retaliatory strikes by U.S. forces that took out a lot of militia targets in Iraq and in Syria. And there was a point in time, especially in around January of this year, when the situation was getting very tense after the militias killed 3 U.S. service members in an attack across the border in Jordan, which was an unprecedented development, after which the U.S. actually threatened more intense punitive measures, kinetic punitive measures against the militias. So after that peak in violence in January, one of the militias, or the leading militia in that camp, Kata'ib Hezbollah, declared a ceasefire from its end and on behalf of the other groups or other factions within the so-called Islamic resistance in Iraq. And they said that they're going to give the Iraqi government a few months to negotiate the exit of U.S. forces from Iraq. Now, at the time, interesting enough, is that Asaib Ahl al-Haq was actually not part of that coalition of militias that was conducting the attacks. And there was a lot of bickering and a lot of finger pointing between the militias about who's the real representative of the resistance and who's the phony, who's the pretender. So it was interesting that when this attack happened on Wednesday, it was actually Asaib Ahl al-Haq that said, oh, the ceasefire is over. But it was actually not Asaib Ahl al-Haq's ceasefire, and it was not its campaign that preceded the ceasefire to begin with. So, it's too early to tell what's really going on, but it seems that there is another layer, behind the main issue of U.S. militia tit-for-tat attacks. There is also another layer that deals with internal militia dynamics and their competition, their internal competition for primacy and for holding the banner of the so-called Iraqi resistance. So we're going to see what happens in the next few days. So far, we have not seen an official statement from Kataib, Hezbollah, or other factions that are close to that camp. But we're going to keep a close eye on that in the next few days.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Omar. That's a great update on one of the security developments. And of course, with each Iraq in 7 minutes, we'll touch on a different development that's captured in your weekly reports. So thank you for that. It's an excellent resource. I highly recommend that everybody checks it out. You can find it at enablingpeace.org/ISHM, ISHM. So with that, we're going to sign off. Thanks so much for joining us again, Omar, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Eric. Have a great weekend.